raspy. I got up at 5 a.m. and it's, well, I lose track of time right around this time. My name is Jerry Barberio. I live in Hamilton. I've lived in South Jersey for the last 25 years. I moved up to New York for a municipal management position. I was a village manager in the village of Mamaroneck for 5 years. And my wife and I just moved back to Hamilton 6 months ago, a little bit less than 6 months ago. I retired from this pension system in New York State because they're very generous in New York State. And I was able to grab my pension and lifetime health benefits. And now I work in municipality in North Jersey, in Bergen County, called Englewood Cliffs. And just last night, and bringing up Englewood Cliffs, because just last night we passed our tree ordinance. It was a second reading, and it passed unanimously. And it's probably quite different. I was speaking to my friend Steve. It's going to be quite different than many of the potential tree ordinances that you will pass or have down here in South Jersey. In Hamilton, I was elected official for 4 years. I was also, during those 4 years, I was the director of parks in Atlantic County. After my parks position, I became the business administrator in Hamilton, and then moved up to New York, and now I work as the borough administrator in Englewood Cliffs. The most unique part of, I think, my career, in my opinion, is that I have a degree in horticulture, and I'm involved in horticulture at every municipal position that I've been in. I was on the Environmental Commission in Hamilton. I was a planning board member. I was an elected official assigned to the planning board. I pretty much handled parks and public works and forestry for the town of Hamilton. We were successful in obtaining 2 grants from the state to plant trees, and we were intimately involved in that. I was able to train the workforce in how to plant trees, and they've continued to do that year after year after year. About 4 years ago, my municipality, Mamaroneck, New York, was having trouble finally completing a tree law. And it had been kicked around for about 10 years, which was kind of ridiculous, but I didn't realize that there was such a lack of knowledge at the municipal level about tree laws. And so the reason it just wasn't going to happen was because everyone had a different opinion. And the reality is, you really have to focus on the preservation of trees if you're going to have a tree law. You can't worry about people who are going to take trees down. You can't worry about people who take trees down, just because they don't like leaves. You can't worry about people who do not want to plant trees in front of their house, because that's municipal space, that's public space. So you have to kind of forget about those things and really push forward and try to get it done. And so I was there for a year. We passed the tree law, and I'll explain a little bit about that tree law and how unique it is. And then go into last night's Englewood Cliffs. And then I'll compare that all to Hamilton, especially with the DBH, which was a great question, because nobody knows what DBH is. So,
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. So to talk about trees, there's a lot of benefits. Everyone kind of realizes there's a lot of benefits about trees, but the reality is that, as Brian said, it will boost health, mental and physical health. It'll clean the air. It's home to wildlife, which is fantastic. It cools down life. It cools my house. I have I only have a 1/4 acre in Hamilton, and I have 12 trees in my backyard. So it's a very cool backyard. The reason I don't have a slide presentation is because the NJDEP and the New Jersey Planning and Zoning Administrators put together a series. It was a 3-part series I was lucky enough to be able to find time in the middle of the day, actually early morning, not early morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, about an hour, hour and a half. It's all recorded, it's fantastic, it explains everything about the new MS4 Tier A tree law requirement. So if you could, I think Amy or Hub people will put the links up to it so they can go right to it. But if you find time to watch it, that's the main reason why I don't have a presentation. They did such a great job that we didn't need to see another presentation. So let's get into the tree law if we can. Sometime last year, I think it was in the spring, the DP announced that there was going to be a requirement for a tree ordinance to be attached to the MS4 permit process. MS4 is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Ordinance. She knows I'm here, by the way. That is required in many, almost every municipality in New Jersey now. In fact, I just looked it up while Brian was talking, that there are 21 municipalities, only 21 municipalities, that have a combined sewer and storm system, which I think is crazy. But these are old municipalities. Camden is one of them, Gloucester is one of them. So they have combined sewer and storm systems. Lucky enough, for many of us, we have separate systems. And so the stormwater goes where it goes, and the sewer gets treated, or in many cases in South Jersey, is in a septic or some type of a system, a personal system. So as I said, I like to use tree preservation. You'll hear throughout the presentations and other things that you may want to do to research your tree ordinance in your community, removal and replacement, protection, right? So tree protection, tree removal and replacement, and tree preservation. I like the term preservation because it is, I believe, my focus and as a municipal forester or municipal certified arborist, to try to preserve as many trees as possible. So, how many of our Hub members and guests here tonight know if they have a tree ordinance in their community? One, two, another 6. 6 is the magic number tonight. So if you don't, and you're cutting down a tree, you may find out the hard way, or you should look for it. And if you don't, there probably will be at some point. Whomever runs your municipality, they'll get a letter or they'll get a phone call from the DEP in short order that they're going to need one when they submit their permit submission every year annually for the MS4 report that they have to put in. So DEP really tried their best with this, and I think they did a good job second time around. But they came in the first time and everybody went nuts and couldn't understand what was happening. And if you look at the original compared to some of the flexibility changes, what I like to call it, it really has gone a long way. And so now, if you have a tree ordinance, you do have to kind of check to see if the ordinance matches up with what the DEP is looking for. If you don't, then the DEP has one for you. And all you have to do is convince whomever makes policy in your community that it's not only beneficial, but it's required. So the DEP model ordinance addresses both removal and replacement on both private and public property. So it has to, your tree law has to do that. Some communities that have a tree law, a tree preservation law, they only take care of public trees, right? Others have just private, and public, it's maybe the DPW superintendent or someone like that who handles that. And it must have teeth and it must be enforceable. And I'll get into teeth and enforceable a little bit later on. The DEP has provided some method of exemption with the certified tree expert, licensed tree expert here in New Jersey, or a certified arborist. They can provide photos, and they can provide a statement that the tree is in fact unhealthy and needs to be removed. And it all follows NJ 45-15C11, which is the law that regulates the tree experts and the Licensing Act. If you're an arborist like myself, we are, what Brian had mentioned, track trained, right? So it's a basic tree risk assessment form, a 4-page form. Doesn't sound very basic, but it is. And what we do is we evaluate the tree based on our training. It's a standard. We like having standards when we're looking at following the law and following ordinances. So I think it's a benefit and a compliment to the DEP that they included a licensed tree expert or a certified arborist to be able to do those things, so that it's not just being decided by someone who really doesn't know what they're looking at. And for the first few years on the Mamaroneck side, there were no trees being evaluated. So because they didn't have, and they had an environmental commission, but they didn't have a shade tree commission, and the environmental commission was really focused on other things because it's a Sound Shore community, it's on the Long Island Sound. They really weren't focused on trees. And to try to get the governing body to go for the tree ordinance, which had been kicked around for 10 years, we needed to have someone, a licensed person, a certified arborist. So I volunteered. I was the village manager. I had a staff of 250 that I managed. I had a budget of $45 million, and I was a very busy guy. But for me, it was very important to be able to sell to the community that you need someone involved in making sure that the trees are protected. And so for a few years, I did it. I left in March, and I approved about 75% of the approximately 120 tree permits. I approved the removal of that. When I approved the removal of it, based on the size of their property, either it was smaller than a quarter acre or larger than a quarter acre, we had a schedule of how many trees they needed to replace based on the DBH. So I added up the DBH, and if it was an 8-inch tree, which is what that tree ordinance was, if it was an 8-inch tree, they had to plant 1 tree on their property as a replacement. If it was up to 26 DBH total, they had to plant 2, and anything over 39, they had to plant 3 trees. Right? So not only did we evaluate the trees and make sure that the beautiful beech trees that some people wanted to take down did not come down, if they did remove a tree, it was replaced by another tree or 2 trees or 3 trees. And so managing the canopy, it's all about managing the canopy, and that's very important. And the DEP highlights that. So in Mamaroneck, I did 120 tree permits, 20,000 people, 5,500 rooftops, right? In Inglewood Cliffs, they do about 70 permits. There's only 5,600 people and 3,400 rooftops. Unfortunately, in North Jersey, they take down 3,000 square foot properties, 3,000 square foot homes, structures, and they build 7,000 square foot structures right on top. They go to the edge, not the edge of the property, but to the edge of the setback in every direction, because all they want is house. And so when they take down 5 or 10 trees, there's no way to replant those trees on that property. So what we did here in Inglewood Cliffs is we created a fund, and they now have to contribute $850 per tree that they're required to put back onto their property. When you're doing a 3,000 square foot house to a 7,000 square foot house, it's just the cost of doing business, right? But we benefit because the last tree bid that we put out in the New York, New Jersey, North New Jersey area, we had to pay $750 for a tree installed. And so I had that number, I had the realization of that number. That may not go down here in South Jersey, it definitely won't go in Hamilton. But what you can do is you can potentially put into your tree law about $100 or $120, and we were able to buy bare root trees for about $100, $120 per tree, and our Parks Department put them in. So instead of spending $60,000, $80,000 to replant trees in Mamaroneck, we started spending $20,000, and I trained the employees on how to put in trees and how to install trees properly. And they were bare root. They would come to us bare root. We would make sure that we were prepared for their delivery, and we put them in right away. So that's how we did it there. So that was a little bit of a discussion with Stephen, where and Barbara, that large or heavy duty tree replacement numbers are probably not going to fly down here in South Jersey. So the DEP law, and I'll go into some of the details here now, but the DEP law requires that municipalities have to have a tree law in place similar to their model by May 1st of 2024. That's not around the corner, that's like tomorrow. And the reality is, I think the DEP will start to poll all the municipalities and see what's going on, what are you doing, and probably give you a little bit of time. A deadline is a deadline. DEP has deadlines all year long, but they're kind of flexible. But I think that within a year, you will be in trouble if you don't have a tree law and a tree ordinance in place. So exceptions, exemptions, and of course the purpose, the DEP did a good job. A lot of people like to, including me, because of the unfunded mandates, but that's my municipal manager's hat. They like to beat up on state agencies and federal agencies. But the reality is that they did a good job with this tree law, and a lot of trees either will be saved or replanted because of what they did. For everyone here in South Jersey, I was just appointed the certified arborist for Egg Harbor City, and so I'm hired by Egg Harbor City to start working on a recommended tree list, to start working on a tree inventory, and if you know anything about public documents, they are public. You don't have to really, you can ask for them, and they can't really say no. So once things are established, maybe start to send an Oprah request in or two, or just call somebody up, and you'll be able to get information. The tree list that I have, that I created for Mamaroneck, and I created for Inglewood Cliffs, has 3 types of trees. Small trees for under wires, which have to stay below 15 feet. Large trees where there are no wires, and that list is about 28 species long, 28 individual species long. And then there's a short list of 5 of do not use. The do not use we have here as Cornice dogwood, Valley Forge elm, the Norway maple, Callery Bradford pear, and of course the tree of heaven, which has become the most hated tree in the world recently. So the tree ordinance in Inglewood Cliffs, you need a permit for a 6-inch on private property DBH or larger, right? So this is going to save a lot of trees. I don't know. It's in this neighborhood right here, okay? If you want to take a tree down on the street, it's 2.5 inch. So you really can't take a tree down on the street. And that was the intent. As I mentioned, if you don't have, so if you take down a cumulative amount of DBH up to 13 inches, in Inglewood Cliffs you have to plant 1 tree. Up to 23 inches, 2 trees. Up to 33 inches, 3 trees, and then anything 33 or greater, 4 trees. If you can't plant them, if you don't want to plant them, then you can give us, the municipality, $850, and we will plant trees where we want to plant trees.
Per tree.
Huh?
Per tree.
Per tree. That's heavy. It's heavy duty. And if you take a tree down without a permit, it's $3,000 per tree. So this was passed unanimously. In Mamaroneck, which took over 10 years to do, it's 8-inch DBH, and it's a little bit different. The schedule's a little bit different. I didn't highlight the schedule, so I can't find it. But the schedule's a little bit different. I explained it to you because I wrote it. I wrote these ordinances, so I kind of know what they are. Oh, here we go. 8 to 12 inches is 1 tree. 13 to 25 inches is 2 trees. 26 inches and greater, 3 trees, they have to be 2 to 2.5 dBH. If you take down trees without a permit, it's $5,000 for the first tree, and then it's $7,500 for each additional tree. And the first time I gave out a summons of $40,000, the judge immediately called me in the next Tuesday, because they only court on Tuesday, and they said, "What do you think you're doing?" I said, "Judge, I'm just following the tree law." "Well, nobody can pay, Jerry, nobody can pay $40,000 for taking down trees." And I said, "I'm not sure if that's my problem," which didn't make the judge happy. And then I was asked to negotiate it, and I wouldn't, because the trees that they took down are valuable, and they're valuable for the community, especially a community that is completely built out. I mean, it's 3 square miles and 20,000 people. So if you can't preserve trees, then it's going to be like some of Brian's pictures, some of New York City, some of the boroughs, and an average house in Mamaroneck is $1.8 million. That's the average house. So I wasn't going to negotiate. The judge negotiates, or the prosecutor negotiates. I wouldn't negotiate. But the reality is, no, not the reality. My recommendation is, if you make your tree law strong, and if you make it so that it's going to be heavy penalties, people will follow it. The tree law in Mamaroneck, there were some fines issued early on. People didn't know. They never know. And they have no idea. But these tree companies are charging $5,000 to $10,000 per tree to remove them, right? So they're just shelling out some money. Eventually, the companies realized if you don't have a tree permit, you need to get one, because they catch people in this community. And we were able to catch people in the community doing that, especially when I started doing code enforcement on Saturdays and Sundays. I didn't do it. I hired somebody to do it. It was the best part-time job this individual ever had. They just drove around the neighborhood all day long, right, in a car, and called the police, and the police would just shut the tree company down. So I think if you're going to, and I'm available at any time. Yes?
So the fine went to the owner.
Fine went to the owner, not the tree company.
Right.
Because we have the ability to fine the property owner, and that's why we did it.
Are there some trees you can take down that you don't get fined for, like Bradford pears?
No, it's just ash. It's just ash.
So you can get fined for taking down a Bradford pear?
Yeah, but you should put a permit in. The permit's $25, and I'll give you permission to take that tree down. As the arborist of the community, I won't even look twice. If it's a Bradford pear, I'm signing off on that permit. All I wanted them to do was put the permit in so that we could manage. And I wasn't going to turn down a Bradford pear. I'm not going to turn down a tree of heaven. I'm not going to turn down a Norway
But if you
maple.
cut it down without a permit, now you're in trouble.
Now you're in trouble. Now you're in trouble. And we had open sessions. We had, I mentioned it at my administrator's report, at my manager's report, at many, many meetings. We got the stuff out there. We have a newsletter that goes out. It's an electronic newsletter. It goes out once a week. Every week, there's a tree law in the village of Mamaroneck. We're doing that in Inglewood Cliffs. Inglewood Cliffs is a smaller community. It's only got a $21 million budget, so I kind of feel like I'm semi-retired. And it ends up, if you push it out there, people will realize it, and the tree companies will realize it. And once the tree companies realize it, they don't want anybody to get in trouble. They don't want their customers to deal with the municipality.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And so what was the stimulus with the municipal officials for
going this path. I mean, they had to know, I can understand an arborist and people that love trees, but as a municipal official, they had to realize that they were taking some pretty bold steps. Sure, good for the environment, but they were gonna get some slack probably on it too.
They were, and it did come up, and so the municipal officials get two complaints. Trees are being cut down without anyone knowing about it, and potholes, right? That's what municipal officials get. They get those complaints all the time. Potholes, right? So they're constantly getting complaints, email, social media, text, whatever it is. Someone's cutting down a tree in my backyard that used to shade and it's beautiful, not in my backyard, next backyard
Right.
over, and potholes. And so that would eliminate those kinds of issues. Plus, they were committed to the tree canopy and maintaining the tree canopy.
Okay. So they valued it.
They valued it, yep, they valued it. Inglewood Cliffs, they valued it as well, but there's gonna be a lot of communities that are not gonna value it and may not wanna do, or take a heavy-handed approach like I recommended in the past. Yes, sir?